Good morning. Is there anybody in here whose family is perfect? Or have you ever been a part of a perfect church? I think if you ever found or seen a family or a church that's perfect, I would say you found a family and a church that's perfect in deceit. That is, they hide their imperfections better than most. Who here has been jealous? Of another person, their family. They have it all, right? Just want to yell. There's nothing you can do about it, right? They have it and you don't. As much as you want to get mad, it's not going to change anything. Now, some families and churches, they seem doomed to fail. Why is that? They can't do anything to fix it. If they try, it only seems to make things worse. Some of us try for so long, you kind of clench your teeth, you buckle down, and you're dead set on changing whatever it may be. But it doesn't work. Where are you left after that? I don't know. But today we're going to see a family in dysfunction. A family that, though dysfunctional, lived on, not only that, it grew into a great nation. Remember, we're going through Genesis, especially from chapter 12 to 50, the promises that God gave Abraham undergird the whole narrative. That they might not be specifically mentioned through stories, but you know that's what's taking place. And these promises that God made to Abraham, we saw that He made it to Isaac, and He also made it to Jacob. So this is Genesis 13 through 15. It says, "The Lord was standing there beside him," it's Jacob, saying, "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, the God of Isaac. I will give you and your offspring the land on which you are lying. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out toward the west, the east, the north, and the south. All the peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. Look, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." Today we're talking about Jacob. He's fleeing. He's going to Haran. Two reasons. One, he's fleeing. He just stole the blessing from his brother. He deceived his father. And so Esau wants to kill him. He's got to get out of there. The second thing is he needs to find a bride. His brother married two Canaanite women, and they're making Isaac and Rebekah's life hell. They can't stand them. And so Rebekah told Isaac that she wants Jacob to marry from her family, and her family's back in Haran. This is something that Josh mentioned a couple weeks ago that I feel like I've mentioned again, that when we're reading the Bible, we're reading narrative, we're reading about stories. The stories are descriptive, and they're not prescriptive. So what I'm saying is, in narratives, the Bible just describes what happens. It's not telling you should do this. The perfect example is David, right? We know David's a godly man, but David committed adultery. That doesn't mean we need to commit adultery too, right? And so it only describes what happens. It's not telling us what to do. So today, can you pull up the map, Stephen? We're talking about the place is Haran. So the very top, where it's kind of green with the red dot, that is modern day Haran. I don't know if it's the exact same place where Jacob went, but Jacob went from all the way down here And he walked all the way up there. And last week I said it was about 500 miles on foot. He makes that trip. And so you go to the next picture. Here's a picture of Haran, modern day. You can see some sheep out there. Maybe this might be kind of something that Jacob would have come upon. Next picture. Here's a well near Haran. And I don't know if this is what the well looks like, because we're running to a well today. It may have looked something like this. Can you go to the next one? Here's another one. This is the well, the hole in the rock, with the hole in the middle of it, and they just put a rock over the top. So this kind of gives you an idea. You'll understand once we get into the story. So we get into chapter 29. This is where Jacob meets Rachel at the well. So Jacob resumed his journey and went to the eastern country. He looked and saw a well in a field. 3 flocks of sheep were lying there beside it, because the sheep were watered from this well, but a large stone covered the opening of the well. The shepherds would roll the stone from the opening of the well and water the sheep when all the flocks were gathered there. Then they would return the stone to its place over the well's opening. In ancient, but even in modern times, communities have agreement over water. And so the way that they would watch one another, they would come together, they would all water at the same time. So now someone will come at one time and you'd probably take more water than, you could all watch one another. And so this is probably the kind of agreement that this community has together. But Jacob doesn't know about this. So Jacob asks the men at the well, he says, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We're from Haran," they answered. "Do you know Laban, grandson of Nahor?" Jacob asked them. Remember, Laban is Jacob's uncle. And think about it, Jacob is right where he needs to be after a 500-mile trip. They answered him, "We know him." "Is he well?" Jacob asked. "Yes," they said, "and here is his daughter Rachel coming with the sheep." Then Jacob said, "Look, it is still broad daylight. It's not time for the animals to be gathered. Water the flock, then go out and let them graze." So why does Jacob want them to water and pasture their flock? It's difficult. This is one of the problems that Josh ran into a couple weeks ago. You start reading the commentators and you get a different answer for each commentator. They interpret one way or another. So some see that Jacob's an experienced shepherd and he's trying to tell them what to do. Another sees that Jacob's kind of arrogant. He just comes among these people and tells them to water, go and pasture your sheep. This is not the time to gather together. But we're not really sure why Jacob wants them to leave. We know that Jacob's ignorant of their water agreement, right? He doesn't know about that. But I personally think that Jacob wants to be alone with Rachel. They say Rachel's coming with the sheep, so he's like, all right, I want these guys to leave. I think by God's providence, Jacob has come to the right place at the right time. And he doesn't want them to be around there when he introduces himself to Rachel. But they replied, he says, "We can't until all the flocks have been gathered and the stones rolled from the well's opening. Then we will water the sheep." While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. As soon as Jacob saw his uncle Laban's daughter, Rachel, with his sheep, he went up and rolled the stone from the opening and watered his uncle Laban's sheep. Jacob sees 2 things that cause him mad. He sees Rachel, but also maybe at this time he sees her and he recognizes her. Maybe he recognizes Rebecca in her, but also he sees the sheep with her. And now Jacob rolls the stone by himself to water the sheep. So again, commentators interpret this in many different ways. Some people think that Jacob showed superhuman strength in moving the stone by himself. Because it sounds like that when they all gather together, all the shepherds move the rock off the opening well together. But here, Jacob does it himself. So was he empowered by his love for her? Does he see her or see her beauty? Again, we don't know. But it seems certain that Jacob breaks their water custom. That they all gather together and then they move the rock. He goes out his way and he just waters her sheep alone. So why did he break the rule? It says, then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept loudly. He told Rachel that he was her father's relative, Rebekah's son. She ran and told her father. Jacob's overcome with joy. 500 miles on foot. He comes upon a well just in time when Rachel's coming out. His future bride. So he can't contain himself. It says he wept loudly. There's another scene in Genesis when Joseph recognizes his brothers, and he's after they sold him to slavery in Egypt, and he goes away from them. He weeps really loudly, like almost there's embarrassment by it. I kind of get the idea that Jacob wanted these shepherds to leave because he's overcome with emotion and joy. You know, some men don't want to show that in front of other men. Personally, I think that's why he wanted them to leave. He can't contain himself. He's made it. It says, when Laban heard the news about his sister's son Jacob, he ran to meet him, hugged him, and kissed him. Then he took him to his house, and Jacob told him all that had happened. Laban said to him, yes, you are my own flesh and blood. So think about it. Jacob's gone from fleeing for his life, from his family, from the only place he has known as home. The burden, right? Of leaving all that. He's about 7 years old at this time, too. And now he's in the safety of his uncle's house. I think someone's watching over him. After Jacob had stayed with him a month, Laban said to him, just because you're my relative, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The older was named Leah, and the younger was named Rachel. Leah had tender, some translations say weak eyes, but Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel, so he answered Laban, I'll work for you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban replied, better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay with me. So Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. So Jacob's going to stay and work for Laban, but Laban wants Jacob to set his wages. At your family, you're staying with me, I'm not going to just let you work for free. What do you want? What are your wages going to be? So Jacob says, I'll work for your daughter for Rachel's hand in marriage. Jacob has nothing to give Laban for the bride price, the dowry. If you guys don't remember the story, when Abraham was seeking a bride for Jacob's dad Isaac, when he sent his servant to the same area, he took a bunch of gifts. Bride price. Gold, silver, you name it, animals. And so he had something to give for Rebekah's hand. Here, Jacob has nothing. This speaks to his poverty at the time, that he had to get up and leave, and he brought nothing with him. And so all he has is his labor. So he'll work 7 years for her hand. 7 years. Did someone honestly say that they would do that? Then Jacob said to Laban, since my time is complete, give me my wife so I can sleep with her. So Laban invited all the men of the place and sponsored a feast. That evening Laban took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and he slept with her. And Laban gave his slave Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her slave. When morning came, there was Leah. So he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Wasn't it for Rachel that I worked for you? Why have you deceived me? Laban answered, it is not the custom in this place to give the younger daughter in marriage before the firstborn. Complete this week of wedding celebration, and we will also give you this younger one in return for working yet another 7 years for me. And Jacob did just that. He finished the week of celebration, and Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. And Laban gave his slave Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her slave. Jacob slept with Rachel also, and indeed he loved Rachel more than Leah. And he worked for Laban another 7 years. Up to this point, Jacob conspired against Esau, right? Esau came in, he was hungry, and Jacob traded that bowl of stew and he got Esau's birthright. He conspired against him. Connived. And the reason he's fleeing is because he deceived his father and stole the blessing that was reserved for his brother Esau. Up to this point, Jacob's been conniving, a deceiver, but now it's Laban who deceives Jacob. It tastes his own medicine, right? This is what it means to be on the other end of deceit. There's no better lesson to your own problems or to your own sin when it's actually done to you. You're like, oh man, this is what I do to people. Taste your own medicine. So why does Laban deceive Jacob? And there's two reasons. He kills two birds with one stone here. He marries off the older, right? From what we can tell, she's not very good looking at all. No opportunity to marry her off, and so he deceives. He's all this. I could make sure I can marry off my older daughter who has no prospects, and it's a man that I know, and his family. It's understandable, right? Why he would deceive him for that? It's not right, but we understand it. Here's the thing, though. Laban brings up customs as an excuse for his deceit. This is hypocrisy. Basically saying, I deceived you because of our custom, which I didn't tell you about. We'll talk about that more later. This idea of using customs or certain things as an excuse for us to deceive or to sin. The second thing is he receives 7 more years of labor. Free labor. 14 years in all that Laban gets out of Jacob. So greedy. He's greedy. And we'll see that Jacob's actually a really good shepherd. And he takes care of his things really well, and he wants 7 more years of that. So it's a very good reason to deceive him. So now we get to the birth of the nation. Verse 31. It says, when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was unable to conceive. Leah conceived, gave birth to a son, and named him Reuben, which means seed, a son. For she said, the Lord has seen my affliction. Surely my husband will love me now. Think about this. Lack of love is an affliction. It's an affliction. We see that the Lord shows compassion on Leah's situation here. I think the biggest issue here, though, is probably conjugal rights. In a polygamous marriage, all the wives, at least in the Old Testament, all the wives have a right to sex with her husband. And she's probably not receiving her share of it. And it's in this kind of situation, it seems as probably whenever Jacob has sex with her, she conceives. The Lord showed compassion on her. Verse 33, she conceived again, gave birth to a son, and said, the Lord heard that I am unloved, has given me the son also. So she named him Simeon, which means heard. She conceived again, gave birth to a son, and said, at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne 3 sons for him. Therefore he was named Levi. What does Leah want? Love. Think about it. The first 3 tribes in the name of Israel are named for Leah's longing for the love of her husband. Verse 35, and she conceived again, gave birth to a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she named him Judah. Then Leah stopped having children. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she envied her sister. Give me sons or I will die, she said to Jacob. Envy is is a very powerful emotion. It can really consume a person. Like you're just passive, you have no power over it. It just comes at you. Also, I don't think she's being dramatic. Sons are important in every culture, but especially in their culture. Her sister's fertility is humiliating her. It's putting her to shame. Think about her situation. She's receiving all this love, all this time, and she's not bearing. And the sister probably only gets them every once in a while, and now she has 4 sons. It's killing her. Might as well kill me. I think she'd rather prefer death at this time than go through the humiliation she's going through. But do you guys see the irony that's going on between these two sisters? Leah has sons, but not her husband's love. Rachel has her husband's love, but no sons. So a competition develops between the two. Jacob became angry with Rachel and said, "Am I in God's place who has withheld offspring from you?" It's reasonable, right? What could Jacob do about this? It's a tough pill to swallow. It really is. So whatever your circumstances, we always have to realize that God placed you there. Jason, have no power over this. God has put you in this position. It doesn't take all the sting away, right? But it helps to know that God is sovereign. He is in control of whatever situation you're in. And then she said, "Here's my maid Bilhah. Go sleep with her, and she'll bear children for me, so that through her I too can build a family." So Rachel gave her slave Bilhah to Jacob as a wife, and he slept with her. Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Rachel said, "God has vindicated me. Yes, he has heard me and given me a son." So she named him Dan. So things aren't complicated enough. Jacob gets a third wife. We have to realize this is ancient practice, though. So if you had a slave back then, you could give your slave to your husband. She would bear a son, and that son would be yours. And that's what Rachel is doing here. But Rachel sees this as vindication from God. To me, is God rewarding her for her jealousy? Right? That's where the action is coming from. Is she right? Rachel's slave Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Rachel said, "In my wrestlings with God, I have wrestled with my sister and won." And she named him Naphtali. So wrestling is an ancient sport. So she sees this as a wrestling match. And she has her sister pinned now. I've wrestled with her, and I won. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her slave Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's slave Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "What good fortune!" And she named him Gad. So Leah takes a page from Rachel's book, and Jacob has a fourth wife. Ridiculous. Basically, far be it if Rachel should beat me. Is probably what was going through her mind. She has my husband, now she has sons. Here, Jacob, take my slave. To me, but she's like, "Oh, look how fortunate I am." To me, it's like if someone's pretending that they found something that they're actually stealing. It's like, "Oh, how fortunate." Right? When Leah's slave Zilpah bore Jacob's second son, Leah said, "I am happy that the women will call me happy. So she named him Asher. I was looking at this. Is Leah happy about the son that she's had? Or does it sound like she's more worried about what people are going to say about her? Isn't it amazing? Some of those details in the past by. But no. I think she's happy she's winning the competition. 6 sons now. Reuben went out during the wheat harvest and found some mandrakes. Literally, it's either love plant or love fruit. So he went out and found some love fruit in the field. When he brought them to his mother Leah, Rachel asked, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." Can you pull up the picture, Steve? So that's a mandrake. This is more like this is probably what he came upon. Good, next picture. There's the fruit of it. And there's the root. And let me read a little section of this dictionary. It says, in the ancient Near East, the mandrake was a widely used symbol of erotic love because it was thought to be an aphrodisiac and therefore was used as a fertility drug. The unusual shape of the large forked roots of the mandrake resembles the human body with extended arms and legs. This similarity gave rise to a popular superstition that the mandrake could induce conception and was therefore used as a fertility drug. It was so thoroughly associated with erotic love that its name is derived from the Hebrew root love. So it denotes love apples. Arab used its fruit and roots as an aphrodisiac, referred to it as servant of love. In other commentaries that I read, that some Arabs actually refer to it as eggs of the jinn, or the devil's eggs. So this is probably the reason that Rachel wants them. She's under the superstition that this plant can bring fertility. So Leah, let me have your son's mandrakes. But Leah replied to her, "Is it enough that you have taken my husband? Now you also want to take my son's mandrakes?" "Well then," Rachel said, "he can sleep with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes." So there we get the picture that Jacob spent most of his time with Rachel. That she had probably more conjugal rights. In this case, it doesn't seem like Leah's getting anything at all. She's got to trade this mandrake for time with her husband, with her own husband. When Jacob came in from the field that evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come with me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So Jacob slept with her that night. Jacob, he's been the conniver, he's been the deceiver. In these stories, he's the pawn. He's Laban's pawn, he's the pawn of his wives. Again, he's getting a taste of his own medicine, what it's like to be on the other end. God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a 5th son. Leah said, "God has rewarded me for giving my slave to my husband," and she named him Issachar. Do you think God really rewarded her for giving her slave to her husband? See how ignorant and foolish these wives are? So think about it. On one hand, we see how confused and wicked and backbiting these wives are. But God still blessed this family in their sin. Right? To me, that's the most amazing part. This is no excuse to sin, though. But we see that God is watching over them. God is fulfilling His promises to this family. This backwards family. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a 6th son. "God has given me a good gift," Leah said. "This time my husband will honor me because I have born 6 sons for him." And she named him Zebulun. Later Leah bore a daughter and named her Dinah. So we even see, we get to the 6th son, and Leah is still fighting for Jacob's affection. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son, and she said, "God has taken away my disgrace." She named him Joseph and said, "May the Lord add another son to me." It's not as if God has forgotten Rachel, right? It's not about knowledge here. It's just the fact that her womb was closed and God remembered her and opened her womb. Did the mandrakes cause her pregnancy? No, she said, God has taken away my disgrace. May the Lord add another son to me. At least she knows where the son is coming from. We see that Joseph's name means add. She wants another son beyond this. This can end up being prophetic. It's either Joseph ends up becoming two tribes, two sons for Israel, Manasseh and Ephraim, or it can mean Benjamin that Rachel's going to have later. But that comes at a price. We'll see that in a couple of weeks. I think that God has taken away her disgrace. The shame that she had to endure to this point is now taken away. I can't imagine the affliction she was going through. But the joy that she had. Again, in the midst of this competition between her sister and herself, God has shown His grace upon them both. To me, it's just amazing. Today we see that this is the birth of a nation. This is how the nation of Israel began. What a proud moment in history, right? So one of the things I want to point out today is God's sovereignty. I think is clear in this story. That God accomplishes His purposes through sinners. Remember the promise of God told Jacob that you would have many descendants and that they're going to fill the land of Canaan. God's going to keep His word. And we see that Jacob's family increases quickly, but through multiple wives. We see that when the law is given to Moses hundreds of years later, it is outlawed to marry two sisters. I wonder why, right? This is Leviticus 18:18. It says, "You are not to marry a woman as a rival to her sister and have sexual intercourse with her during her sister's lifetime." So 400 years later, God saw fit, like, no, this is not going to happen again. To not marry your sister as a rival. But through all this, we see that through sinful competition between Leah and Rachel, that Jacob is able to have many sons. Both their slaves are given to him, and that they have sons. God built this nation through jealousy, through competition, through backbiting, through God's grace to the unloved Leah, through Rachel's barrenness. All these going on, and God is still blessing them. So again, we see that their behavior is sinful, but the Word of God speaks the truth, right? It doesn't gloss over the wicked behavior of these women. It puts it on full display. It even shows that all the names of the tribes of Israel came through this competition, through this jealousy. I think, but God clearly wants to show that He accomplishes His purposes through sinners. He does. The perennial question, especially in the New Testament, is, does this give us the right to sin? Listen to Paul. This is Romans 3:3-6. He's speaking about the Jews here. He says, "What then? If some Jews were unfaithful, will their unfaithfulness nullify God's faithfulness? Absolutely not. Let God be found true, even though everyone is a liar, as it is written, that you may be justified in your words and prevail when you are judged." Paul's saying God's faithfulness doesn't count on our ability to be righteous. He's still going to accomplish His purposes. He's still going to be righteous through all of it. And he says, but if our unrighteousness highlights God's righteousness, what are we to say? I'm using human argument. Is God unrighteous to inflict wrath. Absolutely not. Otherwise, how will God judge the world? But if by my lie God's truth abounds to his glory, why am I also still being judged as a sinner? Paul's saying, if I'm a liar, and yet God is still abounds in his glory, he says, why am I still judged as a sinner? I sin all I want, and yet God's glory still grows. His righteousness is still there. It's not affected by it. So why does it matter what I do? If I lie or tell the truth or not? He says, and why not say, just as some people slanderously claim we say, let us do what is evil so that good may come. Their condemnation is deserved. So even in Paul's time, they're going around saying, God's righteousness continues. His glory grows even when we're sinners. So they're saying, let's do evil so that good may come out of us. Paul said, no, the condemnation is just. That is not what they were teaching. Absolutely not. Now this is Romans 6, 1 through 4. He says, what should we say then? Should we continue in sin so that grace may multiply? Absolutely not. How can we who died to sin still live in it? Or are you unaware that all of us who are baptized into Christ Jesus were baptized into his death? Therefore we were buried with him by baptism into death, in order that, just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, so we too may walk in newness of life. So again, God's grace is no excuse for sin. There was no excuse for these women to behave as they were. But in that, in God's sovereignty, he still worked his purposes through them. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely amazing. That's the same thing that Paul is preaching to the Romans. That's why he has to say, no, this doesn't give you guys the right to sin. Yes, God has accomplished his purposes. He will accomplish his purpose. He will keep his promises. He will bring these blessings, but that does not give you guys the right to behave as you please. I want to speak shortly about deceit. Deceit is always a cover for something. Always. You're hiding something. Laban deceived Jacob so that he could make sure his older daughter would be married off, but also that he would get 7 more years of labor out of Jacob. He was hiding his greed. Right? So maybe I'll give my old daughter first, so I get 7 more years out for the younger daughter. But part of this comes from the father's heart. He sees that Leah's ugly, and he wants to marry her off. You gotta ask yourself, why are you lying? We all do it. One of these days we need to step back. Why am I lying about this? What am I trying to cover up? Who are you trying to protect? The thing is, you can fool us. But I'm not the one you have to worry about. Here's the thing though, what makes Laban's deceit worse is he uses a custom as an excuse for his deceit. He said, we marry off the older before the younger, right? I think it's more wicked though when Christians use the things of God, use the truth of God as an excuse. We're saying we're doing a certain thing because the Bible says so. In fact, we have a different end in what we're doing. We're deceiving people. So what I mean by this, the clearest picture of this is the street preachers. We're all familiar with them. But the ones that especially come out to preach against homosexuality. Don't get me wrong, homosexuality is a sin. And it will be punished. But some men hide their hatred behind this truth. Right? They go out there not to share the gospel, not to proclaim that this is a sin that you can be forgiven of. No, they go out there to slam it in people's faces. They have a hatred of the homosexual community, and they're going to use God's truth to knock them down with it. to all of us, it's transparent, right? But they think they're deceiving me, doing the Lord's work. That kind of hypocrisy will not fly. Deceit here cost Jacob another 7 years of his life. Not even that. Drama for the next 13 years of his life between his 2 wives and the 2 more that he got because of that. Deceit led to all that. You gotta ask yourself a question. Does deceit cost you anything? Or is it costing someone else something? Just recently watched, probably started watching Everybody Loves Raymond again, so I'll probably start bringing up a lot of their. They have a whole episode on lying, and just how it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, so they finally just have to come out with the truth. And just, why didn't you say it so in the beginning? All right? Here, Laban's deceit just kind of just snowballs. Snowballs until Jacob has 4 wives, 13 kids. The wives don't like each other. One of his wives is unloved. What a mess. But again, God uses all of this to keep his promises. God is working something through all of this. To me, it's just amazing. Now we come to the end. We have to ask a question. Did God come to redeem perfect people? Perfect families? Perfect church? Think about that. We don't have a family of more dysfunction on display than Jacob and his wives. And yet God used that. That's in Jesus' genealogy. You go to the New Testament, you just go through Jesus' genealogy, and you find harlots, you find this dysfunction, you have Leah who's unloved, you have an adulterer, you have murderers. Yet that's the family that God blessed and brought forward Christ through. It's not a mistake. It's for all of us to read these things. And we see that. And we see the kind of God who is behind all of this. That he is still working his plan of salvation behind all of this. That we may do things for the absolutely worst reasons, for somehow God is using that same thing for his glory. To me, that's just unexplainable. It's amazing. But as Paul says, it's no excuse to sin. It's no excuse that, God is doing all these things for our sake. Doesn't mean we go out and behave like animals. One of the things that we are going through, we talked about this morning in a Sunday school class was, I lost my train of thought. Well, anyway, can you pull up that Calvin quote? Yeah, okay. So listen to Calvin here. This is John Calvin. It says, "For we know how foolishly the Jews glory extolling the origin of their own nation. For they scarcely deign to acknowledge that they have sprung from Adam and Noah with the rest of mankind." Basically saying we're better than the rest of mankind. But Calvin's saying no. We're all from Adam. We're all from Noah. We all have the same problem. And certainly they do excel in the dignity of their ancestors, as Paul testifies in Romans 9:5. But they do not acknowledge this as coming from God. Wherefore the Spirit purposely aimed at beating down this arrogance when he described their race as sprung from a beginning so mean and abject. For he does not here erect a splendid stage on which they may exhibit themselves, but he humbles them and exalts the grace of God, seeing that he had brought forth his church out of nothing. And Calvin's talking about this whole situation with Jacob and his wives. He says the Jews are just so proud of who they are and where they come from. And Calvin's saying, you idiots. Look at how your family started. Look how your nation started. What are you to be proud of? If anything you see in this, you should exalt the grace of God, that he worked through your family and made you what you are today. Than anything. But that's what we do as humans. We want to have pride in ourselves and what we're able to do. And that's what the Jews were doing at that time. Again, this is the story. This is the theme. One of those themes that just runs through the Bible. That birthright. The blood that's running through your veins. Abraham's my father. That means anything. When all along the prophets and Jesus, John the Baptist, all are saying, that does not matter. It is the grace of God. It is righteousness. It's repenting, turning from those things, turning from God. He redeems you. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for your truth. That you never hold back. Lord, we see the beginning of Israel for all the wickedness that it was. A lot of good happened. But also just the jealousy, the competition that were involved, the deceit. And yet, Lord, you are still working out your plan. You are still blessing this family. Lord, I pray that we take comfort in the fact that you do work all things together for good. To those who love you, to those who are called according to your purpose. As silly and stupid and as wicked as we can be, that you redeem it. You redeem it for your glory. Lord, I also pray that we know that does not give us the right to sin. Lord, that you have sent your Son. He has died for our sake. To redeem messed up families like this. To redeem messed up people like ourselves. That truly deserve your wrath, Lord. That you have poured that out on your Son. That he has died and is resurrected now that we have life. New life. One that we're not held down by this pettiness, deceit, Lord, that we can walk in truth, that we can seek righteousness. Lord, in all things, I just want to acknowledge your grace, your love, that you is displayed, first of all, to this family, but it's displayed through us as a church. Lord, I pray that we share this message as often as possible. Lord, that you open doors for us, that you give us clearness of mind, boldness of speech, to show people that yes, they are sinners, but you do forgive. We pray this in your Son's name, Christ Jesus' name.